I call this meeting of Lake Mary Toastmasters to order. In case you've been wondering, I heard that their coffee brewer was spewing water and not working, and that their bagel baker was failing this morning. So that we have our stuff out here this morning, partake. They put a lot of effort into giving us what's available. If you can't find any of the coffee, there's still tea and soda. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. And make sure your electronic devices are as quiet as we just were. For the rest of the meeting, pass your competent leadership manuals to another member for evaluation of your role this morning. And please welcome our Toastmaster, our Sergeant at Arms, Alexandra Baldo.
Thank you, Stephen. And good morning, Toastmaster.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And amazing guest this morning. I'm very truly honored to be your Toastmaster this morning, and I will do my best to keep this meeting energized. Our theme today is Let's Improv. Now, before we start improvising, let's introduce our technical table. And we are going to get introduced to Stephanie. She's going to be our grammarian this morning. Can you tell us what is a grammarian, Stephanie?
Yay! The grammarian has two primary functions. One is to chew this muffin as easily as I can. The other is to tell you about the word of the day, extemporize. Extemporize is a verb, and it means to manage or do something in a makeshift way. Extemporization, a noun, and extemporizer, a noun, are also acceptable. The sentence, the band decided to extemporize when they ran out of rehearsed music to play. The other thing I'll be doing is listening for improper use of the English language, capturing all that I can, and extraordinary uses of the English language. Also want you to be looking out for the overusage of such words as.
Thank you,
Very
Stephanie.
great. Awesome.
Our timer this morning, we have a little change of the agenda. It's going to be Diane. So this is good morning.
Toastmaster. I was just called on to do this, so I am going to be extemporizing this morning. Okay, so the job of the timer is very important, as we all know, because I always get off time. So it is to keep everybody on schedule and within their time bounds. During the speech, I will be showing cards. You will have however many minutes you have on your speech. Within the 2 minutes of the remaining time, I'll show the green light. Within 1 minute, the yellow light. And when all your time is gone, you'll get the red light. The table topics will have 1 minute to speak. The green light will be shown at 30 seconds, or the green card will be shown at 30 seconds, the yellow card at 45, and the red card at 1 minute, and remain on until you finish your remarks. For the evaluators, you will all have 3 minutes to complete your assessment of your assigned speech. The green card will be shown at 2 minutes, the yellow card at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and the red card at 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Followed by our out-counter this morning, Ernst. Could you please tell us about the role?
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. As the out-counter, I will make sure my job is done beyond the extemporaneous level. The purpose of the out-counter is to note words and sounds such as crutch or pregnant pauses by anyone who speaks during the meeting. Words may be inappropriate interjections such as and, well, but, so, you know, Sounds may be R. I will also be listening for double Dutches as I, or this
Quadruple Dutch.
Madame, that's a stuttering.
As I mentioned before, we have a small change on the agenda. Our timer is this morning is going to be Diane. Thank you, Diane.
Well,
Extemporize. Did I pronounce it correctly?
yes.
Thank you. I'm just making sure you're paying attention. Or improvising is a state of being and creating action without pre-planning. Improv teaches us that mistakes are gifts. When things go wrong, we can improvise, drop our agenda, and make things work in the moment, rolling with the punches, as the saying goes. The good news is that no preparation or training is needed. But without further delay, let's start our first improv exercise. And this improv exercise is known as yes and. Are you guys ready to do this exercise with me?
Yes,
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes and. Here's how it works. I will begin by establishing, setting, and a plot. Using the yes and method, the next Toastmaster will accept the statement that I'm going to give and will add onto the situation with logical sequence before passing to the next Toastmaster and guest or guest. And this will be the person on your right.
Okay.
So you ready? Set,
Yes.
go.
Yes, and go.
So the statement is, what a hot and miserable day to be in a Toastmaster meeting.
Yes, and I'm still so happy to be here.
Yes, and the coffee machine absolutely worked, and I had good coffee, and I'm awake and ready.
You?
Very well. You can do it.
I want to skip it.
Okay.
Yes, and it is an opportunity to still smile and be friendly to other people.
Yes, and I'm glad we were running a little bit late because I was running a little bit late.
Yes, and I will extemporize. Right? There was no water and no coffee ready. I did get my tea anyways.
Yes, and I'm happy to be back in Florida since I have been in Texas for a week.
Yes, and it is a miserable day because I gotta wait until 9:30, 10 o'clock for the stores to open so I can shop.
Yes.
And
Yes, and I am happy to be back again today, and I anticipate learning the difference between talking and speaking.
Yes, and it's a beautiful day, and I like the shirt that you're wearing, my friend Bob.
Yes, and Gus, I like your shirt too.
At least we get food to eat.
Yes.
Yes, and now I have to come up with a different idea for table topics. Yes, and now we get to
And you want to close, Erika?
Yes, and at least we're in air conditioning with an extemporized practice and ready to learn.
Give yourself a big applause. Yes, well, this begins our first part of the meeting designed for prepared speeches. This morning we have 2 speakers. Each of these speeches have been prepared in advance and will have a time limit depending on the Toastmaster manual they have been working from. Our first speaker will complete project number 4, a fact-finding report from the Advanced Communication Series, Speaking to Inform. The title of the speech, MS, what is it? Please join me welcome talented Toastmaster Kerri B.
What happens when you're diagnosed with a disease? This happened to me.
What's the time?
I was diagnosed last August with MS. What MS is, it's multiple sclerosis. What it is it's when your own body starts attacking the fatty tissue that surrounds your central nervous system. Your central nervous system, which is made up of your brain, your optical nerves, and your spinal column. It took about 4 or 5 months to figure out what it was. Actually, they didn't necessarily have to do a whole lot of figuring. That is what they were pretty sure it was. They had to eliminate everything else. There is no testing, there's no actual, you can't just do a blood test and figure it out. You have to eliminate all other possibilities. It included getting MRIs, and if you don't like confined spaces, I was then in there for 3 hours at a time. In a little tiny space, a little cage thing over my head because they were doing my brain and my neck and my back. And it's a little loud, and if you've never had an MRI, and very confining and just slightly, I'm not claustrophobic, but if you are, it would be horrible. I also had to have a lumbar puncture. Lumbar puncture, otherwise known as a spinal tap. There is a protein that they look for. They were 70% sure after the MRIs that I had it. It went up to 90 because I did have the protein. But all of this started out because you need to listen to your body. That's one of the things that I wanted to say. If you think that there's something not right, go to the doctor. I didn't for a couple days. It started out with some numbness in my legs, but let me tell you, it's numbness not like when your leg falls asleep. It was more like just my skin was numb. I could feel that you were touching me. I couldn't tell, like when I was at the doctor, I couldn't tell that what he was doing was poking me with something that was really sharp. Couldn't feel that. And it started with my legs, and then below my knees, went up to my legs about my thighs, and then when I freaked out and actually went to the doctor is when it was from my waist down, which was a little freaky waking up in the morning. My husband thought I was crazy, told me I didn't really need to go to the doctor, but he still is in denial though. He says I don't have MS, so that's just a whole other issue. And yeah. So after that, I did a lot of research on MS in general as a whole, what things to do, what not to do, and also the medications. There are medications you can take. There is no cure for it. There are medications. The medications, there's about 10 or so, and they keep coming up with new ones. Most of them started around sometime in the 90s. So prior to that, there weren't any. And the medications most of the medications have some significant side effects. They can cause liver damage, they can cause depression, and bad enough for people to commit suicide. They can have flu-like symptoms, things like that. Most of them are injections. One of the newest ones is, the most common were Copaxone and Rebif. The newest one is Tecfidera. It was just approved by the FDA a year ago, March. And that is actually a pill that you take twice a day. This is where you come up with your healthcare issues. Most healthcare won't cover that. I ran into this last fall because that is what I wanted to take because the side effects are minimal. And it's a pill and not having to give myself an injection twice a day. And my insurance at that time said, well, we don't cover it, but you still have to have our approval to take it. Like, if you're not paying for it, why do you care what I take? It is, I have it here, I brought it with me. This is it. It's a big, huge blue pill that I take twice a day. And this bottle, without insurance, is $4,500 a month. Whoa. Yes. So, With insurance, so that was the whole thing kind of leads to knowing what your insurance covers. You need to know what it covers as far as your co-pays and your cost for things like the MRI, like a lumbar puncture, like a hospital stay. If you don't know, you should, and you need to. I didn't know enough, I don't believe, when I walked into this situation. And as far as prescription coverage, that is the other thing that you really need to know. Not all of your insurance covers prescriptions, and this in particular, of course, then falls under the specialty drug. All of the MS drugs fall under specialty drugs, which means you have to go to specialty drug pharmacies. Some are way better than others. You don't get the choice. Your insurance makes the choice which one you go to. I now have to make several phone calls a month, one to get my drugs and one to end up paying for it. They say they have an all nicely automated system online. It doesn't work. I have to call every time because it's required that I call every time. So, but for something like the Affordable Care Act, your silver package. With your silver package, a drug such as something like this or a specialty drug, you are still responsible for 38% of the cost. And some drugs, what they also do with that is they may only cover one drug for MS, your particular insurance package that you buy, and it may not be the one that works best for you. There isn't anything you can really do about that other than pay for the drug yourself separately. Like for Copaxone, for example, which is one of the most expensive, it's more expensive than this one. However, they usually want you to take that before this. On a bronze package, you would still owe $1,980 a month. Silver is $1,888. Gold is $1,584, and with the platinum package, it's still $782. What I was able to do, because it's a new drug, the company itself has help. Well, their help is only $15,000 a year. So, but if you're only paying, $800, $700 a month, you can get it covered to where your copay then what you're actually paying is $10 a month. Well, my original insurance when I started on this last fall, I had $15,000. It was $4,500. So I got me until January. I then switched to my husband's insurance. Thank goodness he works for a company that has 80,000 employees. They have multiple health insurance coverages, and within the gold package, they had 4 different health insurance. Only 2 of them covered Tecfidera. So that limited our choice to this one or that one, because that was the main thing of what we had to do. So what I pay now, my copay gets this to $30. I still only pay $10 because of the help that I have, the assistance. Don't know how long that assistance lasts. It lasts as long as they have, since it's still a relatively new drug. There is, Copaxone though is older and still has assistance, so things like that. But, so the main things I really want to leave you with are, if you think something's wrong, go to the doctor. And the other thing is truly know your health care and know what you're getting into when you're buying your health care. And now I do have a question and answer section, so if anybody has any questions. Yeah.
So what's the future of Obamacare if we can't pay for medicine like that? What do you do? If you don't have a husband
that has that kind of insurance, I wouldn't be taking it. That would be the answer because I couldn't afford to live. I don't make $4,500 a month. So that would be my answer.
Have you tried to getting anything out from outside the country?
No, I have not. I have not tried.
Last year at the Heathrow Country Club, there was a guest speaker that was an MS survivor and has a whole group, and they run across the country. Have you reached out to any kind of support groups?
I have some to the locally. Well, I actually went to nationally first, and then there is the local chapter for Central Florida. I haven't really done anything yet. I'm lucky enough at this point to have only had the one attack. I have not had any more. The longer you can put it off between, the better. Typically, the later you're diagnosed in life, the worse it may be. And you're typically diagnosed between 20 and 50. And as a general thing, it shortens your life by 5 to 10 years. Any other questions?
Any pain or anything?
No.
Just the numbness and...
Just the numbness at that one time. And it did go away. I took prednisone, which is a steroid, which made that go away in about 5 days. And I have not had any other symptoms or anything. Although I will tell you right now, because sometimes if I don't eat enough when I take the medication, I get really red and sweaty and plushy. Feeling a little bit that way because I know I didn't eat very much this morning. So, but that was about the only side effect that I've had of anything, and I'm still can do pretty much anything. Play softball. Doesn't affect me. It hasn't affected me in that way as of yet.
And what do they anticipate your future is like with this?
They don't know because every person that has MS, the disease is entirely different. It has a whole different process, and some people can have one, what they call clinically isolated incident, and never have another one. And other people they will start having them more and more often, and it will get worse and worse, and they won't necessarily fully recover from them. So, which is why you see a lot of people with MS in wheelchairs or with canes, things like that.
I encourage everyone who wants to further ask questions, definitely feel free to contact Kerri after the meeting. Thank you so much, Kerri.
We're going to have 1 minute for evaluation.
Evaluations.
Oh, yeah, sure.
They only have one. Oh, my God.
Okay, time out.
Yeah.
I cannot say it, but I'm assuming that it's already a minute. It's not a minute yet?
No.
Not yet? It is?
I will go in about 20 seconds.
Our second speaker completed the Competent Communication Manual last year. Today, he is speaking on the 4th of 5 rehearsed speeches from the Storytelling Manual in the Advanced Communication Series. The title of the speech, Joy in the City of Phillipi. Please join me welcome distinguished Toastmaster Gus D.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. When you have to tell a story, you really need to extemporize because it's an improv. So I'm going to have a chair here as I tell you the story. What makes you joyful? Is it the circumstances you face, the conditions in which you find yourself? Well, let me tell you a story about how some people were joyful in spite of the circumstances they were facing. They faced 3 big incidents when they visited the city of Phillipi. Phillipi was a Roman colony, and the Romans had conquered Greece, and King Philip II gave his name to that city. So it was named Phillipi. There was a preacher who was going around. He arrived in the city of Phillipi. For a couple of days he hung out just to get to know the city. On a particular Sabbath day, he and his friend, his name was Paul. Paul took with him a medical doctor, Luke, and he also took a young guy that was named Silas. So they got into the city, they hung out for a couple of days, and on that Sabbath, they went outside of the village, because most of the people in the city of Phillipi were actually Romans, Greeks, and there were a couple of Jews there. So if you want to connect with the Jewish community, you really have to go outside of the city and meet them. They were very joyful. when they arrived in Philippi and they checked the city out, and outside of the city they met these folks and they had a great conversation. They shared the story of why they are there. There was a very prominent lady in that group. Her name was Lydia. And so Lydia was a businesswoman. She was involved in selling clothing, textile industry. And Lydia was so noted in the town that the message that the men brought, she clearly received it. And you know what Lydia did? If you're Lydia, she said, come over to my house. She invited the men to her house, and she said, if you really want to be joyful in the city of Philippi, come and spend some time with me. So they went to Lydia's house. There was lots of food, there was lots of fellowship, and all the families in the surrounding homes came, and they had a great time in the house of Lydia. They were joyful in the city of Philippi. The next day, Paul, Silas, and Dr. Luke were going to another spot so that they can just share their message and story. As they went down the street, there was a slave girl whose job was to fortune tell with witchcraft. And as Paul and Silas were going down the street, and this girl just started to shout, these men, they've come to our town. We don't like them. She did that for a couple of days. And on the third day, Paul just finally, who was the leader of the group, just turned to this girl and said, this evil spirit in you, get out. Immediately, the evil spirit left the girl. But there was some confusion in the city of Philippi. It was not a joyful moment. So what happened, the owners of the slave girl dragged Paul and Silas to the city center, and they called the officials. They said, these guys have come into our town, they're giving a message we don't like, we are not approve of what they're doing. Now I am out of business, this slave girl is not fortune telling, we don't have money. It was not a joyful moment for these three visitors in the city of Philippi. They ordered that they would strip them of their clothes, and they gave them a good flogging. They really whipped their bottoms out. But do you think that was the end of it? They decided to invite the jailer, the head of the prison in that town, and said, these men, they've done something we don't like. Take them and put them in the jail. We'll talk to them later. They put them in jail. They put handcuffs on them, and they put in their ankles. They also handcuffed them, and the guys were sitting in jail. Is that a circumstance, a situation that you can be joyful in the city of Philippi? Of course not. So these three guys are sitting in the jail, have no option. They started to sing and rejoice in the prison. And the other prisoners were hearing, what's wrong with these guys? We're in jail, we're in prison, and they are singing and making noise. About midnight, there was a huge earthquake. The walls were shaken, the doors flung open, and all the prisoners, their chains were taken off, and they ran out. They ran out in the hallway, and that also woke up the jailer, the head of the prison. He ran down the hallway, and he saw that all the prisoners were out of their rooms, and they were standing there. He pulled his sword out, and he was about to commit suicide. Because as a Roman soldier, if those prisoners escape, you're gone, you're dead. So he wanted to just kill himself right there. Paul saw him and said, sorry sir, just hold a minute. We are all here. No one is missing. Because Paul was so much filled with the joy in Philippi, he extended that to the head jailer, the head of the prison. And this prisoner said, wow, well, what can I do to be part of this joyful celebration you have in the city of Philippi? About midnight, that jailer took Paul, Silas, and Luke to his house. He washed their wounds because of the debris that had fallen all over from the walls, gave them food to eat, and at the same time, they rested a little bit. In the morning, he brought them back to the jail. When he brought them back to the jail, everybody was there. And as they were sitting around just trying to get everything back together, two men came from the officials, from the government officials. And they went over to the prisoner and they said, sir, we just want you to quietly release those guys so that they can go home because they have a following in the town. Well, Paul overheard this messenger telling the prisoner that message. And Paul said, sir, we cannot just be dismissed secretly. We came into the city, we shared our story with the people, the lovely were joyful, but you guys got us into the town square, you whipped our bottom, you flogged us, you put us in jail. How can you now quietly dismiss us? And they said, why are you saying that, Paul? And Paul said, because I am a Roman citizen also. He said, I'm a Roman citizen. You just cannot treat a Roman citizen. So go back and tell the officials to come and dismiss us. Which they joyfully did. Called the officials. They came back and then they escorted Paul and Barnabas and Silas and Luke to the house of Philippi. When they got back to the house of Lydia, before they left the city of Philippi, there was a great celebration. There was all the food you can think, if possible. They had pastries, they had drinks, and everybody came together in the house. And they celebrated because Paul, Silas, and Dr. Luke had brought a joyful message to the city. Years later, Paul wrote a letter to these people in the city of Philippi. He said, in every circumstance you find yourself, be joyful. I don't know what your circumstance today, but I encourage you to be joyful in the city of Orlando. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Gus. Great ending. Let's have 1 minute for evaluations.
Good job.
Yes.
Absolutely perfect. My protege.
Thank you, Diane. Besides the yes and method, another priceless improv tip is to keep the energy going. A mistake happens, let it go. Move on. Something forgot something important, justify it and move on. Just keep moving. The system is not static. It is alive and dynamic. All right, our second part of the meeting is dedicated to our table topic portion. This portion is where members, probably guests, depending on Stephen, are chosen randomly by our table topic master to give roughly 30 to 60 seconds response to a question posed. Please, with that said, help me welcome Stephen Morgan.
Now that it's time to work on our extemporaneous speaking, I'm going to need a little bit of help since we should be doing this improv style, should we not? Therefore, I need an occupation. Somebody name an occupation.
Dentist.
Dentist, a good one. Someone name a medical condition.
MS.
Oh, too easy. Come on, we just heard that one. Okay.
Diabetes.
Diabetes? Right. Name a rite of passage.
Confirmation.
Okay. An obscure TV show.
Big Bang.
I thought it was like that.
A movie genre.
Romantic comedy.
Okay. And an odd speech topic.
Bingo.
Who's scared now?
You can speak. Bingo. Why not? It just popped in my head.
With those put together, what might you come up with next? Let's see. When was the last time you made a bingo game out of Big Bang Theory, Bud?
The last time I made a bingo game out of the Big Bang Theory, I was hiking through the woods. And a black bear jumped out from behind a tree and took a swing at me. I didn't know what to do. I knew he could run faster than I could, so there was no choice and no possibility of getting away. And the Fish and Game Commission was nowhere around, so they couldn't euthanize him. So I had no choice other than to invite him to play with me a game of bingo. So I gave him the card, I gave him the little markers, and I started calling out the numbers. And he dutifully filled in every one of those squares until finally he got a whole line in a row. And he said, bingo! And then he started chasing me again. But luckily, that was just the very moment when my nightmare ended.
Which is worse, having diabetes or going to the dentist? Anthony, welcome back.
It will change your way of looking at your health. Earlier, Kerri mentioned how you should listen to your body. And diabetes is one of those things where if you can listen, you can improve. What you put in your body changes you. You can't extemporize from diabetes. You have to work hard at it to make it more healthy, and you got to do it. Exercise every day, eat right every day, and you become a happy person. And then you can attend Toastmasters in the morning and be awake.
Clock tells me my time has run out, saving the rest of you from another panic attack. Welcome back to Toastmasters.
That was awesome. Can we say that's extemporizing what we did? Very nice. Improv in the business world. Sometimes people block ideas in the business world to establish their own status rather than being useful, giving additions to the creative team. The next exercise is going to teach us to focus on the idea instead competing for a status within the group. It's called the keep the creating energy going. So be ready. This is the exercise. We are going to be improv. We are going to pretend that we are going to shoot a commercial, that we are a creative team doing a commercial. And I'm going to give you what it happens sometimes in business world, bad and incomplete concept. The group will accept the bad concept and will build on it on a supportive manner. You have to be supportive. And you have to keep the energy going. So, are you ready?
Maybe. We gotta be started.
We're going to do a commercial together. Okay, group, this is my great idea. Everybody ready? I want to film a bagel every night for the 7 nights. Accepted? I can help you with some clues, and the next person keep going.
Great idea, I love it.
Wow, we call it the bagel night.
Well, it sounds like something very creative. Have you thought about why 9 or 7? Have you thought about maybe adding some colors or maybe adding some candles?
You have to be supportive.
I love bagels. I love coming to Panera to eat bagels. And at work, we actually have Bagel Friday. So you could possibly make the commercial into something like a day of the week, like a weekly kind of ritual.
Next.
I think that's a great idea. How about bagel martinis? Martinis are great all over the place. And pizza, bagel pizza. That would be a great idea with a martini and pizza together. That would be a top seller.
And I think that it's a great idea because I love when bagels can go from many different phases, from the nice, fresh, delicious form until it gets to the bagel chip and the stale breadcrumbs.
I like the idea of the flavored bagel. I think you should soak it in rum.
I love bagels. I want to be the taste tester.
There you go.
I think I like bagels with cream cheese, and that's my favorite. So I'll go with bagels every day.
Bagels are the best thing that ever happened to this country. But the best of them, all the bagels, are the pumpernickel bagels, and they're hard to find. Sometimes you get half pumpernickel and half regular white wheat, but those aren't nearly as good as the full pumpernickel bagel, and that's even better if you're able to get it with cream cheese and lox.
Oh.
Joseph,
Who doesn't love bagels? Just get over.
Let's put eyes on it, we'll name it Fido.
Fido.
We'll take it out for walks. And then we'll start a whole new trend and we can make a whole bunch of toys selling them.
yeah, Ben.
Yeah, I think Fido would go great with some accessories like cream cheese.
And Erika?
Fido's evil nemesis is Mr. Donut. And Mr. Donut has a leg up on Fido because Mr. Donut offers donut holes. So why don't we have bagel holes?
You guys are the best creative group ever. So now we move into the third part of the meeting, and this part of the meeting is devoted to our evaluations. Our first evaluator, evaluating Kerri, is going to be Bob. General evaluator, thank you.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, especially honored guests. It's my job to lead the evaluations in terms of what we've done so far. And so I think I'll start off by calling on the first evaluator to evaluate the first speaker. And that's going to be Jorge Frijoles and Frijoles, not Frugal. And he's going to evaluate speaker number 1, Kerri Bird.
It's a tough last name. Well, thank you, Master Evaluator. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and especially Kerri. This morning, you definitely shared something very personal with us this morning with this speech, and were able to do it in a way that completed all the objectives in this manual, which was to fact-finding report. So you started out, obviously because you do have this personal connection, you were able to weave the personal story into it. I think everybody can relate to it more, and it is more open to retain different facts about MS in general, and then as you went into the drugs about it, just all the facts that you presented, we were able to really relate more because of that personal aspect that you brought into the story. You did go through, I like the order where you started out, you defined MS, what it was, and even though it is kind of a hard thing to define in and of itself, but you did a good job trying to narrow it down to kind of what the symptoms are and what it does, long-term, short-term, things you should look out for, things you definitely encouragement to go to the doctor anytime you think anything's wrong, to listen to your body. So I know because it is kind of undefined, it's probably a hypochondriac's worst nightmare, not knowing what. They'll be going to the doctor every day now. Anything will spur that. But I did like, especially when you got into, I think a lot of the facts really came out when you started talking about the drugs, and then all the different drugs, comparing and contrasting the different plans under Affordable Care Act, the private insurance, the different ways, the different assistance programs that are out there. So everything that goes into the financial aspect of the treatment of that. So a lot of good facts there. Again, relating it to your experience then dealing with the insurance company. Right? So I thought, again, that tying of the personal and the facts is definitely a lot more entertaining, but informative than if you were just coming up here and saying facts like in an academic type setting. So definitely like the personal touch. I think when it was time for the question and answer portion, you had a chance to extemporize, whatever the audience was going to throw at you, and you were very well prepared for all the questions that were thrown. You had good answers for everything comes, so you really know, it really came through that you had that knowledge, that experience, and you've done a lot of research on your own on the topic. So overall, I thought it was really good speech. I liked, and I keep hitting on it, but the personal aspect of it, and I look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. That was a good evaluation. And now we'll proceed to this evaluation of our second speaker, who was...
Good job, Jorge.
was Gus D. And I think it'll be a real challenge, but I know that Erika Benfield is totally up to evaluating Gus D.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and especially Gus. What an amazing story, Gus. The city of Philippi, the joy in the city of Philippi. Having heard this story before, I was prepared for the outcome. I want to just say that you organized your plot, you created the background, you described how they entered the city. Your project, however, was the touching story. The touching story with the joy in the city of Philippi. So these are a few observations. You chose to evoke feeling indirectly by walking us through your organized version of this story because we had a certain amount of time to use. I would have liked to have heard things such as, she sobbed hysterically watching them flaunt. Or when the fortune teller's spell was cast, maybe using describatory words such as, her eyes widened after the spell was cast. But you brilliantly walked us through such an emotional story and such a valuable life lesson. Most importantly, when they were in the prison and they said, no, we want to leave in a respectable manner. It's basically what they asked for. And maybe the reaction to the guard in that sentence could have evoked more emotional reaction. But what was genius about the way you used that is that we used our own emotional reaction. I'm listening to the story and I'm crying inside watching that happen and the injustice and not wanting to rebel. Taking the opportunity to celebrate and be joyful throughout the whole story, the reaction of those reacting to the inspiration would have been a way to really touch on your project, which is the touching story. Overall, I felt like you did a phenomenal job. You chose a really wonderful story that throughout today we will all think about it, and I tell my kids this every day. It's not the accusation that matters. It's how you react to what you're being accused of. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you, Erika. I think you met the challenge because it's pretty difficult to evaluate a speech by Gus. Very, very good. We'll now move on to reports by our technical table, and I will ask Diane to give us a report on her job as timer.
Thank you, Mr. Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters. Okay, so we'll start with the speakers, and both of you guys were a little over. I think we had a little time to play with anyway. Kerri, you started at a little over 8 minutes. You started to do your question and answer. So I don't know if we should start, say you're over, but you were over even at 8 minutes. And you went to 11 minutes. Gus, you were at 8:08, you were supposed to go to 8. Bud, you were within the time limits at 58 seconds. Anthony at 45 seconds within the time limit. For our evaluators, Jorge, you were at 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and Erika at 2 minutes and 37 seconds. Everybody did a great job extemporizing today.
Next, our grammarian Stephanie will extemporize on how we manage to use our words.
Word of the day, correctly used by Alexandra, Anthony, Gus D, Jorge, Diane, Ernst, the second time around. Is that it?
Erika.
Erika? You did? Erika, I don't know how I
It's
missed
not
that.
by you.
Yes.
The first time
Yes.
around.
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, so you all escaped. Some language that we can pay attention to. Gus Davies? Yes. When you said he hang out, you meant he hung out, the past tense. Okay. Okay. I really like, you whip their bottoms out. I almost want to see that. Let's see. Alexandra, your sign that said creating energy, I think should be creative energy on your sign that you showed us the last time around. Kerri Bird, you need to listen to your body. So true. Jorge, you split up your very and really, so that's okay. You did okay today. Yeah, half and half. Erika, bagel holes. Erika, and doing your evaluation of Gus, your language was just brilliant. I might have missed the word of the day, but I'm so mesmerized by the language. It was brilliant. And I think that's it. That is it today. I didn't catch anything else. That's my report.
We'll now have a report from our Wizard of Oz, Ernst.
He's the Master Evaluator from the Toastmasters and our guest. And to our Toastmaster, Alexandra, you had 1 N and 2 R's. Great improvement. Kerri, a fantastic personalized story. I hope things are working out. I know it's tough, no matter which way you look at it. However, I could not overlook
Oh, yeah, why?
so many ands and like and ums and ahs, but it was still a great, great story. Gus Davis, fantastic storytelling. There were 2 ands. Stephen, clean as a whistle. But 2 and. But 2 buds. Butts.
2 buds.
2 buds. Anthony, clean. He, I think, should be voted in as a new member. Everybody racing, say.
He's an old member.
Jorge, a fantastic evaluation. 1 butt and 2 ands. Erika, again, also fantastic evaluation. I wish I could be 10% as good as you are. No, I couldn't mark anything, but great job.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, clean as a whistle. And Diane, a few N's and a few R's other than that. That's my report, Mr. Master.
Well, thanks a million, Mr. Wizard. It's now my job to give a general evaluation of the meeting. We did start 2 minutes late. I don't know how that happened. Probably we can blame it on the caterers who didn't bring in all the coffee and the rolls on time. We started at 7:32. Preparations were all good, except we could have used some more evaluation slips. I think we were short on some of them. I think I had to share mine with Gus. We got 2 between us, so everybody should get at least 2. Okay, the handoffs were really, really good. The president to the Toastmaster to Speaker 1, Speaker 1 back to the Toastmaster, to all the handoffs. Even the handoff from the Toastmaster to the General Evaluator was fantastic. That was my favorite. So all those were good. Last minute changes were smoothly addressed. Diane, we want to thank you for stepping in as timer. At the very last minute, you stepped in and you did a perfect job, so thank you very, very much. Question here about, I guess I want to ask Stephanie, did you tell who used the word of the day?
Yes, she did.
She did, okay,
Yes.
sorry. Okay, very good. All right. Our Toastmaster, who also filled in as Sergeant at Arms, for which I congratulate her. Huh? I know. We've got 1 other minute. Okay. She did a fantastic job of both, including her gestures, making use of the gestures of throwing away all the proposed agenda into the air, which I thought was very, very appropriate to the improvisation theme of our meeting. And using the yes and device was an extremely good opportunity for everyone in the room to extemporize. The table topics was well done by Stephen, and I'll now turn over our meeting to Stephen, who will give the President's remarks and advice and counseling.
Thank you, Bud. 6 guests. Glad to see you all, and hopefully we'll be able to see more of each of you there very soon. We'd like to hear what you thought about the meeting. We'll begin with our former treasurer. Anthony, welcome back. We'll hope. How have we been doing?
Great meeting as always. I see the names of many of the old members, and I see Stephanie.
Fellow Rotarian.
Fellow Rotarian. So it's great. I mean, you guys do a great job, and as always, very organized, and the way a Toastmasters meeting should be run. I have another Toastmasters at my place, so I do take part in Toastmasters as often as I can. It's one of the best ways. So all guests, I definitely urge you guys to join it, take part in it, and make the best out of Toastmasters. So thank you.
Today is my second time here, and I really enjoyed learning a lot, and it's very useful for me. I'm considering it because I really need to improve my language skills. So I thank you, all of you. I really have enjoyed all the stories. It was great. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm always excited to be here. I'm glad that Maria was able to make it. And also, just to give you an update, I accepted the position with the College of Medicine of UCF. So they want me to start on the 7th. And that's in Lake Nona, so you might not see me again after that time, unfortunately. However, I'm going to be trying to find a club nearby, because I definitely want to come back. I need it, and this is always a wonderful experience. So I always, even if I'm not here, please know that this club is in a very high regard in my, how do you say, in my heart.
Yes.
That I've been able to know people and feel so comfortable here. So if I have other people I can recommend, definitely I will bring them here before.
Welcome back.
This is also my second week here, and last week I found it very interesting. And each time I come back, it makes me know that there is a difference between talking and speaking. And I look forward to coming back again.
Yeah, I thought today's meeting was really interesting. I'm a biomedical science major, so the MS thing was really something I learned a lot from. So thank you for sharing that. also the improv games were really fun, so I had a really great time today. So.
I've been to a couple meetings, and every time it's been a great learning experience, and I hope to come back as a member eventually.
They are both joining today.
Strong arm technique is the best way to go. This will be my last meeting as president. The Toastmasters year ends on June 30th. Our next meeting is on July 1st, the first day of the new year, and we will be having the officer installation. A special guest will be here to conduct that. I will give a speech for the end of the year. Erika will give a speech for the beginning of the year as the incoming president. We do not necessarily have to have any functionaries. We probably would like to have a timer just so that we can keep set with whatever the agenda timing comes out.
Be up there.
Is anyone willing to take on the role of timer for next week? Kerri?
Yeah, officer.
You're an officer.
So, not that mean.
Well,
We'll have one of these newbies, just.
One of these newbies.
Thank you.
Give something to do.
the speeches are the ones we need to ask for. Kerri's fine. Okay. After that, I'll be handling the schedule for the weeks that follow. We'll be doing it differently than we have from the past, so be ready for that one. Officer training for the new officers is set for Saturday, July 12th. You have that on your calendars. It's at Cavalry Assembly on Clay Street in the Park. It's scheduled from 9 to 3.
They will get the office. The officers will get their manuals next week and to bring them to the training when you go.
All right. Any other announcements or last orders of business?
What about the schedule?
That's
That was next week's schedule.
That was next week. Installation of officers.
Yeah, I understand. Are we going to talk next week about the following week?
Correct.
Yeah, we already have a schedule for July.
We have one for July 8th.
July
I
8th.
know, I'm hoping to see if anybody wants to switch with me. Huh? I was supposed to speak today, but I was out of town. So I was trying to switch, but then everybody wasn't doing their speeches. So if anybody wants to switch with me.
Is everybody signed up to the
Are you-
new
are
thing,
you
to the
for
new
the-
system?
Thank you.
Everyone has an account.
Yeah.
Whether everyone's actually accessed it is a different thing. I'll be making sure everyone can get to that. Schedule will be available there. That way. Any other announcements?
Well, hold on one second. Are you saying you need help?
No, I signed on. I thought it's a great system.
Okay. All right.
For the first time, I was able to kind of see what's going on.
Okay. Good.
Awesome. Anything more? Then we shall be done and see you here next week.